Hey everyone, Dan with Mac Rumors, and in this video we go hands-on and get some first impressions of the all-new LG G7 ThinQ, one of the first major smartphones in the US, aside from Apple of course, to include the infamous notch. Before we do a comparison of the G7 to the iPhone X, let's go ahead and take a quick look at what LG is offering with its latest flagship phone for 2018. The LG G7 features a glass and aluminum construction, a smaller form factor without sacrificing screen real estate, minimal bezels, and of course, a very premium look and feel. This has been the design of choice for smartphones for quite some time, and LG does not deviate from this trend and take any design risks. It's also common for smartphone manufacturers to include dual cameras on the back of the phone, and that's what LG has done here. The G7 has two 16-megapixel cameras, a telephoto and a wide-angle lens, and also there's a fingerprint sensor right underneath them. The power button has moved back to the right side of the device, which is also much in line with other flagship phones, and the volume buttons are on the left-hand side. There's also a dedicated assistant button, and users will be happy to know that LG did not introduce its own assistant and instead is using Google Assistant for the dedicated button. This is probably something that Samsung should have done with its phones, but that's a conversation for another day. Finally, the 6.1-inch QHD display is nearly edge-to-edge like most modern smartphones, but the big story found here, of course, is the notch at the top of the display. This is kind of a big deal because aside from consumers who own an iPhone X, this might be the first time that most prospective new smartphone owners are coming across the notch design. Yes, there have been a couple of other companies who have introduced phones with the notch, like Essential and Huawei, and there are also a boatload of other Chinese manufacturers who have quickly climbed aboard after the release of the iPhone X. But the LG G7 will be one of the first major Android manufacturers to introduce a notch here in the United States. So you're probably thinking, what's the big deal about the notch? Well, when Apple first announced the iPhone X, I asked the same question. There were and still are a lot of people up in arms about this design choice. Some people don't mind it and some people hate it. I see it as something that quickly grows on you and doesn't hinder day-to-day performance, especially when apps are designed to take advantage of it. Now there are some apps that I use that are not optimized and it can be a bit annoying, but this is a rare occurrence and that's really the only time that the notch actually bothers me. LG actually heard these sentiments and implemented what they thought would be the best compromise. Inside of the settings menu, you can actually toggle off the notch, which will give yourself a more traditional status bar, which stretches all the way across the device, eliminating the notch. So if it really bothers you, you can just toggle it off, which is generally an overall theme of Android. Things can be easily customized and changed to adapt the user's preferences. The other major difference between the notch found on the iPhone X and the notch on the G7 is what's hiding underneath. The G7 does not have a true depth camera system like the iPhone X, which gives the users the very intricate and in-depth Face ID feature that's found on the iPhone X. Now the G7 does have a face unlock feature, much like other Android phones, but this is not secure enough option for mobile payments or passwords and is reduced to only being a way to unlock your phone. One other thing to point out, although LG was able to copy the screen real estate at the top of the phone with the inclusion of the notch, LG and other manufacturers for that matter are still unable to extend the screen all the way down to the bottom of the phone. Instead, we get a slight chin at the bottom. This is mostly due in part to the phone's display controller, which is what allows the screen to display images, which is being hidden inside the display in the iPhone X instead of underneath the display. This technology is what sets Apple apart from all the other manufacturers when it comes to an all-screen device. Now aside from all of this, the LG G7 ThinQ seems like a really good Android phone. There are a few cool features like AI camera, where the G7 will automatically analyze subjects in the frame and provide recommendations on how to adjust your shot to best fit the scene and improve your pictures. You can see this in action here, where the camera recognizes the specific scene that I'm currently in and adapts on the fly. Overall, the G7 ThinQ can definitely be a competitor to the iPhone X, especially with a similar design and a lower price tag. The phones are both up to 2018 standards, so there won't be any problems there, and they can pretty much handle anything that you might throw at them. It will of course just come down to OS preference and what ecosystem you might have invested in already. If you guys want to see a full camera comparison between these two phones, or want to tell us your thoughts on the LG G7, let us know in the comment section down below. This has been Dan with Mac Rumors, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.